Welcome everybody, my name's Scott and today we're once again looking at our urban parking system repository that's been designed and built in Enterprise Architect. I'm joined by Stephen Maguire, who today is going to have a look at our expert video on package diagrams. Welcome Stephen, how are you today?
Very well, thank you, Scott, and thank you for the introduction. Always a pleasure to be here. Yeah, let's get cracking on this now. We're going to have a look at some of the expert features of the tool and package diagrams. So the first thing we're going to do is set our perspective. I have been working on some structural things, so that perspective is already set there. So UML structural, don't need to change that. Let's get moving. Our navigation cells tell us that we've got our structural models there. Let's just click through on that. We've got our package model, and we've got our familiar diagram where we've done a number of different models and representations of packages. Let's find that in the project browser. There it is. We had another one of these in our intermediate and advanced videos. So just to recap on that, that's dragging packages onto the diagram. So I do that, I get a list there of different representations that I can use for packages. So everything from a package element, a report, a graph, a matrix, and a package list. These are all covered in our previous video on advanced and intermediate videos on package diagrams. So let's take a look at something completely different. So what I want to look at now is in the toolbox, we have a number of different elements here. We've got packages, profiles, models, MDG technologies there, and a number of different relationships and UML standard profiles that are all related to packages. So let's go and create a new package model under here, and I'm going to call it nested packages. So what we're going to do is we'll have a look at this now, and we'll create a diagram under that one as well using our familiar icon there, UML structural package, nested packages. Let's do that. There are two ways to nest packages, and you'll see the advantages of doing each one of them. Let's take our requirements model again, and we'll look at, actually, let's look at requirements and requirements, functional feature modeling. We'll look at feature modeling this time, leave the functional ones alone. Here we've got a parking kiosk, and you know, let's go and make sure we've got some notes in these elements. Let me just look at these ones here, parking kiosk, and I think let's get some notes and put them into that. It's got to always encourage people to be putting notes into these packages. A lot of people do it at the element level, not everyone, but it's good to do it at the package level as well. So you see that these packages have all got those in them. Let's just drag the parking kiosk onto the diagram as a package element. By default, Enterprise Architect will show the nested packages. I'm going to turn that off, the package contents, turn that off, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. So what I can do now is I can drag other packages onto the diagram, and what I want to do is show the nesting, if you like, on that. I'll put that package element in there, and I'm just going to expand this, just dragging the corners of that. So I apologize, I snapped a tendon in one of my fingers, and it's got a little plaster on it. It's hitting the right mouse key, so occasionally something will pop up, which I don't intend to, because the plaster on my finger has hit the right mouse key. So I'll do that one there though, and I'll put in user interface as well, and I'll drop in smart things. I could multi-select them as well. I'm not going to do that. I just want to show you dropping them in package elements. I won't put them all in. So another thing that's kind of is an expert topic, don't think that you have to represent everything in a diagram that's in the project browser. You may have some reason to be showing particular things. I can just line these packages up quite easily there. Again, go to my layout ribbon, say align them there, space evenly down. So that's one type of nesting I can use, and it's diagrammatic, right? The nesting is already in the project browser, so we already have that nesting inside the browser. But this is a diagrammatic representation, can be put into a report, something like that, and showing these things. It's also nice to be able to, show some relationships. You might have some relationships here, core payment and ticketing. You might have a relationship between those, and you might say, look, let's put in a a trace relationship between those two things. Notice how now, Scott, these little annotations underneath the package. It says from parking kiosk. That's not that useful because I can see that
It's
I'm already
all
in
in parking kiosk. Yes.
Yeah. So right mouse click and properties, and we go to the diagram properties there, and we turn off show namespace, which is on by default. So that will get rid of that, makes the diagram a lot cleaner. So that's one representation of package nesting. And of course, we could go down to any level in this. And if I wanted to, I can then, for a particular individual package, I could then show compartment visibility and say, look, I do want to show package contents on that particular one. And there we have the the contents of that. So I can, that way I can just have that representation. The other thing I could do is I could say, look, I do want to show notes on these packages as well. So again, I could then rearrange this guy and go, look, I want these to be a bit bigger and move these ones down, and a bit of rearranging there. I'll leave it up to the audience to show to do that work. I'm not going to spend our time rearranging those too much. I'll just make them a little bit more obvious there. So a number of different options there with that. The other option I've got though is that I can use the nesting package relationship. So let me backtrack out of this now. So we've got that there. I'm going to have a look at under our package diagram here, package on nested packages. I'll put another diagram under this nested packages, and I'll call it nested packages with relationship. So create that diagram. Again, let me just go back in my kiosk one again, my parking kiosk, drag that onto the diagram, package element. No harm now, I'll just leave that on. I am going to get rid of that from feature modeling underneath it as well. It is the default there, and I'll go into diagram and say, look, let's not show that. And I'm just going to drag on these other packages onto the diagram and as package element, and they all go on. And let's just space these out a little bit. We can do that, or we can actually, let's just multi-select them actually and do something a bit different with them.
I see the traces come across from the other diagram that you created.
That's right, Scott, that has. So we might not want to show that. So this is an expert video. We can delete that, but say hide the connector, right? We don't need to show them. So I've got all those packages there, although all got their elements in them. So I'll just zoom out a little bit, make a little bit more space here, and rather than nesting them across ways, I'm going to nest them down. What I'm going to do is say space evenly down. I'll make them all the same height and width. That one will be the template one there, and I'll space evenly down again. And I'm just going to move them over like this. So I'm just using my shift and my right arrow key to move them over. And then I'm going to put in a relationship, which is using this nesting one. So actually, I didn't grab that one there. Let me just line that up. The quick linker does, or the quick visual alignment does the job, and I'll just make that the same size as well. So using this nesting relationship, just simply drag and drop between there, and let's do another one. We won't do them all to show you what that's like. And let's use the right mouse click and line style, and we'll do lateral vertical. That's a nice way to represent that line style there, tree style, lateral vertical. So we could go then and do the whole lot of them there. But that's another nesting type of relationship. The difference between it is that this one here is using the information that's in, let me just make those the same width. This is using the information that's in the browser anyway. I haven't added any extra things. The relationship there is already in the parking kiosk browser relationships there. The core payment and ticketing system is actually nested underneath that. But this allows you to view it in a way that you can incorporate into reports, because you can't incorporate that tree view structure easily into report other than taking a snap of it, or to do some other kind of fancy work in the report. But this is a much easier visual way to do that. So that's what I wanted to cover with those things. There are a number of other relationships here that we want to look at, and to do that, I'm going to create some other packages to use this to represent these things. So what I'm going to do is, under my package model, I'm going to create, and this may not be the place you'll put it in your final models, but for these representations here, it's a useful place to be putting it. So I'm going to create another package. You're all familiar with creating packages now. Just in passing, Scott, when you do create a package, you've got these three initial content options: select and apply a model pattern. So we looked at those patterns. I said I wanted to do things from first principles, but people will get a lot of advantage out of using that. Create a diagram or a package only. So you can do either of those things. I think that what I might do is create a diagram as well. So it's going to create the package and the diagram. I'll put that on there. And now I've got a frameworks and library, and I'm going to create my diagram there. So my diagram's open. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a framework first. So let me just drag that package onto the thing, and I'm going to call it urban parking framework. So I've got my framework there. What are the kind of things that I might have in my framework? I don't want to get into the details of these. This is more about packages, and so let's have a look at what that might be. But I've got a framework there, and let's just see where that is in the project browser. We can do that quite easily by clicking on that. My fingers got in the way a little bit there, and I find that. Let's do that again. Find that in the project browser. There it is, urban parking system. It's under our frameworks and libraries, and let's create some packages under there. The kind of things that we might have in a framework library is something like an event publisher. So these are the things that you might, want to reuse or be using from different places. We've got a so I fell into this trap.
because you still had it checked to create.
I still had it checked, so I don't want that diagram. So let's uncheck that next time we're doing the event publisher. Let's drag a package from there onto this one here, and I'll say package only there, and let's say security provider. So that's going to be provider. So that's a couple of examples of the kind of things you might have in there. Let's create a model library now, and again, particular type of package. Let's call this parking domains model, our library, and let's put the kind of things in our parking domain. So again, we need to find where it is in the project browser. Very simple process. That's it there, parking domain. Let's just drag a package onto that as well. Kind of things we might have is there things to do with the motorist themselves. So we might have lots of detail about the motorist. We might have another package in here. I'm doing it a couple of different ways, parking infrastructure. And what I might get you to do, Scott, while I finish this off, is let's do a bit of time travel magic, and we'll come back and look at this. You can see what the pattern that's going on, and we'll finish this off in a bit.
Welcome back. We've now completed our little urban parking frameworks and libraries. So Stephen, perhaps you can explain what we've done and how we've used package diagrams to bring together our frameworks, our model libraries, meta models, and much, much more.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Good to be back here. Yeah, what I've done is I've created the packages, and I don't want to concentrate on the contents of these packages from a kind of structural or semantic point of view, but more upon the nature of these packages. So we've got this model library here, which is called parking domain model. So we've got a number of different models: motorist, parking infrastructure. And the parking infrastructure, if you look in the project browser, it could be street parking infrastructure or tower infrastructure. So we can go down to any number of levels, and that's the advantage of the package there, that we can keep going down in different levels. We've got our framework here for urban parking framework, which is a couple of examples: an event publisher, a security provider. There a number of different things that we could do. We could have a service template as well, something like that. But what we need to do is put some relationships in here now, and you can see in the toolbox there, we've got these different relationships: package merge, package import, nesting we've used. I'm not going to look at the profile application, but we can put in a relationship now between these packages. I've got that merged there, and I'm going to do the same thing with these other ones. My mouse button's getting in the way a little bit there, and I'll merge that there. So the merge relationship is going to be used in a very expert kind of situation, and most people won't, unless you're doing expert work, won't be using it. There is some very complicated, if you like, very advanced syntax and about the way that the merge works. But basically, you're merging these two packages together. The other one is the import relationship, and I'm going to import and say that we're going to use a package import, and we'll import the these domain models into this parking framework here. So again, we can put that relationship there. The meta model, I'm going to have a trace between that and the I used to use this relationship here, standard one, tracing that meta model there, and probably the domain models need to be traced as well, but that's already kind of covered by this import relationship there. So that's a little bit of some of the use of these expert relationships. Unless you're doing some advanced, really kind of expert work, you won't be using them. But it's good to cover them off and show you how they work. Like I said, the detailed semantics of how a merge works, you can look it up in the UML specification. It's something that you won't need every day, but it's worth having a look at. So the other one is this meta model. In fact, Enterprise Architect has got a very advanced system for making meta models, which we call profiles in UML, and we have a technology builder as part of our perspective. So if we look in there and look in under structural there, we can look in custom technologies, MDG technology builder. That's going to be the subject of some future videos that might be of interest to people. But let's have a look down here a little bit. We've got these models here, these structural models here, and I think we have got one. This right thing will get out of the way. I'm just going to look up information on structural models. I'm not sure that they're in there. Oh yeah, here it's MDG technology, urban parking. That's a profile model. So we have that urban parking profile, which is essentially the same kind of thing. I'm going to click on it, and you can see this is actually a meta model where we've got we're defining our own elements: a parking meter, a location, a security control, a persona, a stakeholder. So if we wanted to, we could drag that model onto this diagram as well, and it would it can be related, again, traced to this concept of the meta model there. So we just do I guess actually we'll do it the other way around. We'll say that this is a realization of that meta model. So so we're using a number of different relationships there. But anyway, that's some of the expert kind of topics there covered off today, Scott. But I encourage you to go back and look at all of the other videos, from the introduction to package diagrams, the intermediate, the advanced videos as well, because they cover lots and lots of content.
Thank you very much for your time today, Stephen. It's been great seeing how you can use some of these expert features as far as package diagrams in Enterprise Architect is concerned. If you have any questions about structuring your model or using package diagrams to help organize and structure your models, you can reach out to Stephen via his LinkedIn credentials or his website information, which is stored in the video description below. Thank you for joining us today. It's always great to have our audience here with us, and thank you, Stephen, for your UML expertise. It's been great to see you develop more interesting models around our urban parking framework. So thanks so much.
Always a pleasure to be here, Scott. And please, anyone in the audience, don't be shy to get in contact. I'll be delighted to assist you in any way that I can.